Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg, continuing on with car 15 and Jeff Dostalek, nice enough to let me even sit in the vehicle. Wasn't sure if that was going to happen, but yeah, we'll talk about driving afterwards. Right. That's not going to be seen on camera today. Jeff, so obviously a lot of stuff happening in the back here of the vehicle, but this vehicle is used as an emergency vehicle. What are some of the components that we're talking about when it comes to emergency vehicle? The background in driving it.
Sure.
You still take classes even for that too.
Right. So we do. Each member that comes on the service has to take an initial CEVO class, so Emergency Vehicle Operations class, EVOC. There's a classroom portion of it, and then there's also a driving range portion of it. They're required to recertify that every 2 years. This year, we're going to do the certification internally. We usually go to the county and have the county do it for us, but this year we're going to do it internally and probably do it here in the Fitch-Rona station just because the parking lot is so big.
Ooh, we want to come out for that, Jeff. We want to see how those tests go. And guess what? When you knock over the cones, it's funny to the driver, not funny to the instructor. Just telling you right now, from my experience anyway.
So that would be for the ambulance, and anybody's available to drive the car if they need to drive the car.
Fantastic. What do we have up front here that you're utilizing when you're responding to calls?
Yeah. So we have our MDC in here. So we're able to see what calls actually any of the county units are on. We can assign ourselves to a call. So if Patrick and I decide that we want to go out on a call based on what we hear, we can come in here, hit self-assign, and we can assign ourselves to the call. And then we can see everything that the crews can see as well that is put in by the dispatch unit. Radio, obviously, lights and sirens and stuff are in here as well. And then we also have our accountability tags that are in here. So if we go to a fire scene or a big event and they have an accountability officer that keeps track of the units there, we're able to give them our accountability tag. So if something drastic happens and the car gets blown up or something falls on it, they know who car 15 was there, and these are the people that are on car 15.
Fantastic. And then you have, of course, the handy-dandy notebooks here of
right.
of everything. Certainly everybody's like, you got the computer world, but when you're in an emergency situation, maybe your communication's down, whatever, you got to go back to some of the basics of pulling out a map.
Right. So we're fortunate enough that with our MDC we can pull up a map, and it actually talks to us and says turn left here, turn right here, so we know. But if not, we have map books in the back here that we're able to pull out and look at each individual address, both in Fitch-Rona and in Fitchburg, and then in the town of Fitch-Rona as well. And if worse comes to worse, we can always call the county and say, hey, we don't know how to get here, give us a hand.
That works out pretty good. Talk about running, again, looking back at that highway call or any type of call, if you were running as the medical side of things, so right. Certainly going a little bit deeper here than maybe the normal average person may care, but talk about your role as the medical group in a large-scale incident.
Sure. As a medical group supervisor, for example, we'll just use the car wreck out on 151. My role was to communicate with the initial ambulances that were coming into the scene. We called the county, have the county open up our base hospital. So the base hospital is UW. And when we open up base hospital, UW, then they open it up to all of the local hospitals and says we have a large-scale incident. How many beds do you have available in the ER? How many critical patients can you take? And all that communication goes to one facility, which is UW. And then once we get an account of patients, once they're triaged, then the crews would refer those to the medical group supervisor to say we have 3 reds, 4 greens, 5 yellows, whatever the case may be. And we can relay that to UW Hospital. As the base hospital. The base hospital would then say 1 red goes to Meriter, 1 red goes to UW, the yellows can go to St. Mary's. We can take 1 out to UW East if we need to, or if we have to, we can take 1 out to Stoughton. And that's all kind of coordinated through the medical group supervisor, so that when incoming ambulances come in, then I can relay that to the incoming ambulance and say, for example, City Mess and Medic 6, you have a red, that red is going to go to UW Hospital. Wanakee came down for whatever reason, you're taking a yellow and you can go to UW East. And that way we don't have a lot of radio traffic between ambulances and hospitals, and things get confusing. The other part of medical group supervisor is to maintain accountability for where patients go. So when we have to reunite patients with families, we can have a name. We know it went to this hospital at this time by this ambulance. The reunification process, which we did down here after that crash, we were able to dictate or tell people where their loved ones went. So when we do large scale events, that's an important part of the medical group supervisor. And then just kind of taking a look at the scene as a whole. Where does where staging might be, it's best to do over here, we can relay that to command. Ideally, the medical group supervisor should sit right here and have their radios and look over the scene. In that case, there was, the span of the incident was so large that I actually exited the vehicle and kind of stood in the middle and worked with Sarah and Brandon to try and triage all of the patients and look for safety issues, things like that.
If there was a perfect, if everything worked out perfectly, everybody wouldn't have problems. Let's put it that way. But no, I think it's a good explanation. There's a lot of planning, and that's why this public safety world is all about training, practice.
Right.
So when that day happens, you've got it squared away.
Right.
So
we always plan for the worst case scenarios, and those don't happen that often. But in the case of that event, we haven't had. I've been here 3.5 years. We haven't had a large scale event like that. But when it happens, you want to have that training, that triage stuff. We talk about, we talk a lot about stop the bleed, but we want to have those things in place so that when it does happen, it's clockwork.
Absolutely.
And that's why we work together with our partners, the fire departments and the police departments, to do that.
Well, I think this vehicle makes things, just fit. That's what it feels like. Car 15 is the
glue.
the glue to the
Excellent.
whatever you've got it figured out there. Jeff, thank you so much for the time.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it as always, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Right. We'll take a quick break. You are watching Talking Fitchburg.